warm welcome for Tim Everitt. Come on up, Tim.
Hello. So, I know a lot of people here, but for those of you who don't know me, let me explain just a little bit about who I am and what my background is. I'm a filmmaker, and I've made films of one kind or another my entire life. I went to USC about the time of Star Wars, when it was a very, very exciting time to be a young filmmaker out of USC because of George Lucas and all that. And as part of my psychosis, because at USC they brainwash you to think that if you're not making feature films, you're somehow a failure in life. So that explains a lot about me. So I got out of school and I started a little production company because filmmakers don't take jobs. If you take a job, that's a sign of failure. You know, filmmakers raise money and make films, and that's all they do. So that's what I thought you were supposed to do, which is what I did. And I made hundreds of commercials and industrial films while I was developing movies and trying to catch that big break. When we finally got it, we made a string of feature films in the 80s and 90s and into the early 2000s. And then one day I got involved in some animated stuff, and people started coming to me for animation, and my career took a strange path, and I became an animator in Hollywood, and I worked in the visual effects industry on big studio pictures, and I worked for Warner Brothers a lot, and for Disney and people like that. And all of that prepared me to come to Seattle, okay? I'm not joking. So I came here initially to, my job of entry was to teach. I was teaching at the Art Institute, teaching film and animation. And I stopped doing that a couple of years ago, and because I've been trying to get my own production company off the ground here, which is really hard. Because everybody in Seattle, I'll tell you one thing I've learned about Seattle filmmakers, they are fiercely independent people. They want to do things their way, they want to make the films they want to make. In Hollywood, people don't have that kind of attitude. You know, they're like, what do you want, another Transformers movie? I'm like, there for you. You know, it's like, here people, they've got the thing they want to do. So it's a much more independent life here. But the reason I'm here tonight is because ever since I came to Seattle, I've been on a crusade to get Seattle filmmakers to raise their production value, okay? And I think this is really important. And so that's kind of what my speech is, my presentation is here tonight. I've come to tell you a few things that you should be doing, and I hope everybody does, and my students will recognize some of this stuff because I'm really into it. Red Sox. Okay, so, but the reason that you should, just in case you want to know, the reason you need to raise your production value is I've learned two things in Hollywood, and one was as a director, I found out that the greater your production value was and the slicker your movie, the more you could sell it for, and I'm not joking, okay? And if you do a few simple things to your movies, you can put a zero on the end of the check you get from your distributor. Okay, you can sell a territory, instead of selling some little territory for $5,000, you can sell it for $50,000. Some little territory, instead of for $50,000, you can sell it for $500,000. It matters a lot. And, you know, everybody here is fiercely independent, like, I don't care. It's like, well, you should. You should care, because when you make a little money, then you make another film, and then you make another film, and that's all you want to do, is just keep the ball rolling and keep the money flowing. So it's important to raise the production value up. And then the second thing I learned when I got into animation was how to do this. Once I learned how the big studios and working on these big pictures did it, you start to realize it's like, my God, this is simple. You know, why, I wish I knew this back when I was directing a lot of movies. So I'm here to share some of the really simple things that you guys could do and everybody should do. And we've only got half an hour, so I'm just going to plunge into it. Okay, and I have this computer, so I'm going to be down here for a while, if I can get it going. It's timed off. Okay, yeah, we're coming back. This is Windows 8, always trust Microsoft. Okay. And the first thing I want to talk about is things that you guys can do that are really simple, because there are really complicated stuff that I can do because I've got all this visual effects chops. I can do anything you can imagine. But it takes time and it's sophisticated and everything. But there's simple things that you can do that you don't need me for. Because like everybody here has a copy of After Effects, right? And everybody knows how to use After Effects. You've got some chops on that. It's not that hard, okay? If not, you probably have an intern that can do it. But it's really, really simple stuff. So the first thing I want to talk about that everybody should do are sky replacements, okay? Sky replacements, drop dead serious. We're at the same latitude as Seoul, South Korea, right? But in Seoul, South Korea, culturally, the filmmaking community replaces all their skies all the time. There are probably 15 companies in Seoul, which is not much bigger than Seattle, it is, but not much, that do nothing but sky replacements because every commercial replaces all their skies. And it's like, why do you do this? Because it adds drama and production value and looks really good. You know, we're the same as them. We have gray skies 6 months out of the year. And you go out and shoot and all your skies are gray. It's not dramatic, it doesn't look good. And for like 3 months of the year in the summer, it's like in the glorious weather, the skies are just blue. There's not a cloud in them. You know, I tell my friends to come in the summer. Please, God, come here in the summer. It's the most gorgeous weather ever. But the skies are ugly, okay? So, you got to replace your skies. I'm going to show you a couple ways to do that. And what I'm going to do is, I thought it would be fun, is I brought some more I brought some archival photos that I thought would be fun from the 1930s. To show you how people used to do it, because it's really, it'll suddenly become extremely clear what you guys have to do, okay? So we're going to use a different technique than they did, but the principle is the same, all right? So the first thing I want to show you is this picture, which is a set on the back lot. And as you can see, the sky is blank, okay? And this is shot in Los Angeles, and the problem with Los Angeles is there's a marine layer that comes in every morning. And in LA, the sky's white 300 days out of the year. 300 days out of the year, the sky's white. There's no clouds, it's not blue, there's no features. It's the most boring thing you've ever seen in your life. And yet when you go to the movies, you never see that. Because even back in the silent days, through the 30s, 40s, 50s, forever, people in A pictures just replaced the skies. So you see nothing here, and on the next picture, you see the dramatic sky, okay? That's the same set. Okay, now what they did back then, this is very interesting, is on a beautiful day when you had some nice clouds, you would run out with a big, large format camera, like an 8x10 or something, and you would take some background plates of the clouds. Then you would take it to the lab, and you would blow those pictures up on a big 3-foot by 2-foot piece of acetate, okay? And you dodge out the bottom so it was clear. And you would dodge it out so that the clear area went up to where the clouds are. Now where the clouds are is clear, and the only thing that's printed on the acetate is the blue of the sky. So once this is dodged out, you don't have to worry about the horizon, because you just bring the clouds down so that the blue doesn't cover up the horizon. And bang, you got a sky replacement. You would hang these big pieces of acetate on a seat stand in front of the camera and shoot through them, okay? And people did this from the silent days and all through the 30s. I think this is like a 1930s production, okay? People did this up until the 70s, okay? Up until computers. People still hung acetate in front of their cameras. Now, you don't have to do that, but what you will do is you'll take your shot into After Effects, you'll take a little cloud plate that you've stolen off the internet, and you're going to go into Photoshop, and you're going to dodge out the bottom of that image of clouds so that it goes up smoothly from white into the clouds, and you're just going to lay it on top of your ugly sky. It's as simple as that. Just don't mess with the horizon. And that's all there is. When you put this on, you know, those of you who know After Effects, you know, you use the multiply feature. So instead of it being, just normal or screen, you know, all those different modes, nodes and everything, you use multiply, and on your blank white sky, it'll just print the blues. Just like that. Really, really simple, okay? Let me keep showing you some stuff. This one's very interesting because they had this feature of this rope up here for compositional purposes, so they dodged out the cloud to leave where the rope is. Now you're not doing any mats, you're not pulling any keys, you're not doing any roto. You just fix the cloud so that the feature that you want pops through. Very, very, very simple. And look at the horizon. Tucks down right on top of all that stuff. Very, very, very easy. Okay? You could do this in the 1930s. Okay? Here's another one. So obviously some people are going to come riding down this road, and you can see what a boring looking shot this is, right? It's just got a featureless sky, it looks really boring. But when you put the sky in, voila. Now it's like John Ford in Monument Valley with those beautiful skies. You don't think he did this? Of course he did, okay? Now we've got some drama going on. You need to add a little drama to your movie. Here's, I believe it's from the same production. There's the back lot, probably Warner Brothers or something, because they have a little lake there. And then they add the sky. Now in this case, they didn't worry about the top of the ship because it's all silhouetted in black, and when you put the sky in, nobody knows. It's all the same, so they didn't care. They just laid it in. They got a beautiful, dramatic sunset shot out of their movie. This is all done in camera back in those days. You don't have to do it in camera. You're just going to do this little simple comp in After Effects. Very, very, very simple. Okay. Here's another interesting one. This one, the time they did care about the detail on the ship, and so they built their little cloud plate to walk around in. I hope we're getting the idea. This is my favorite because here's some cowboys from some B Western in 1935, and it looks like a Hollywood Western, right? Because you've seen shots like this a million times. You never see them with the blank skies. Because it feels Hollywood, it feels slick, it feels like there's production value because you got all this nice drama. But the reason I like this one is look carefully at the sky, and then I'll cut to the next shot. It's the cowboys in long shot, and it's the same sky. They didn't even bother to reposition it. It's just exactly the same. That's really cheap. Okay, so we'll come back to this. But what I want to show you is that people did this all the time. This is a still from Barry Lyndon, the Stanley Kubrick movie, right? Everybody seen Barry Lyndon? Everybody? Yes. Okay. One of the most beautiful films ever made. One of the greatest cinematography you've ever seen. But this is a sky replacement that was done on set the same way that these guys did in the 1930s. Now the legend is that was used in the publicity of the film, which you probably heard, is that Stanley Kubrick was such a perfectionist that he waited for the clouds to be right before he would shoot. That's why the clouds are so perfect in this movie. Everybody's like, oh my God, I can't even believe it. He's such a perfectionist. Okay, that's all bunk. That was all just publicity. Kubrick put this stuff out so everybody would think he was some filmmaking god and it would give him more power. The fact is they hung a little acetate in front of the camera. That's the truth, right? And in this one, we can't really tell with the lights here and the projection, but if you go online, you can do a search for Barry Lyndon to see this. But there's actually light on these foreground trees up to about the point where the clouds cover them, and then they go black. And what they did was they kept the light off the trees because this piece of, well, you can see on the right, you can see it going over the trees, and the tree goes all black and silhouette-y. And that's because they wanted to disguise the fact that the clouds are covering up the tree. But since the tree's black, you can't see anything. So that's like from Barry Lyndon. So people still did this, like the people doing the finest cinematography in the world use this little trick to make their skies dramatic. Imagine how boring that shot would be if it was just a white sky, right? It wouldn't be as good. Okay? Let me go back. Oh my God, it's Windows 8. Here's another Barry Lyndon still. This one's really interesting. And again, I apologize for the projection, but this time they put the cloud completely over the background hill. And again, you can't see it very well here, but it covers up these trees on the right and they go black because the cloud is covering them up. So when you really study it, you can see where the cloud is. But in the movie, you don't notice. It's just a beautiful, gorgeous, dramatic shot. And obviously, if Barry were just riding on this road with a big white sky, it would be kind of a boring shot. Nobody would write home about it. As it is, it's like, give it the Academy Award, which I think it did win. I think it won for cinematography, right? And for costume. I'm going to show you something that I did once, just in case you say, yeah, why don't you show your work? That's kind of tweaked image there, but this is from The Last Samurai, where I was the animation supervisor on The Last Samurai. And this is Tom Cruise, and he's overlooking a field of soldiers. Now we're going to put more soldiers in and cannons and flags and stuff, but that city in the distance is a modern city. This is supposed to take place 100 years ago. And you can see the sky is just blank, right? And you see that little blue pole, that's a tracking pole. So that when the camera pushes in, we can track it. We'll make that pole go away later, but that helps us track everything in, okay? So this is the before picture, and this is a shot that I did. This is one of my shots. And then I'll show you the after picture. And that's the after picture. Okay, so we put in more soldiers, we put in more tents, we put guys marching around, we put flags and cannons in. I did a nice matte painting of the city in the distance that looks like it was a Japanese city from like 100 and some odd years ago, and naturally replaced the sky, of course, because that's what you do, all right? So you should do it too, okay? And now I'm going to show you some stuff that was done here in Seattle along these same lines, because when I was teaching, I tried to show my students that it's like, my God, you people should, no matter what you shoot, you should replace the skies and make things dramatic. So I have a couple of student projects that I liked. And this VFX Collier. Don't say anything. This was from a little documentary that this girl made, and if you look at it, you see the guy come over the hill? Well, she took the sky and painted it out like I told her to, so that it did not cover him up when he came up over the hill. And now she's got this really dramatic, sunset-y looking sky in her documentary. She replaced a lot of the shots in her documentary, and people would tell her, oh wow, the cinematography is so great. But what they were trying to say, because people don't know, is, wow, those images are really dramatic looking, okay? So I think she got a lot of props for the cinematography, and it was all because of the sky replacement. It's a very nice job. The next thing I want to show is I took the same piece of film and had the entire class do the same piece of film, just because what I'm going to show you is the same thing done by 4 or 5 different people. And the takeaway to this is every filmmaker does it differently, because every filmmaker makes a creative choice when you do this, and that creative choice, the exciting thing about sky replacements is once you put the sky in, all the colors and the feel and everything of what you put in, you then start matching. You start matching the blacks and everything on the foreground stuff, and all of a sudden you get a look and a feel for your project that is unique to that scene. So your decision matters for a lot, okay? So just to show you some student work. See if this comes up. Work machine. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is a little shot that was just a documentary shot of some boats in Lake Washington out here, and it's taken a little while to roll. Maybe it'll catch up on the next thing. But the filmmaker picked some clouds that were rolling, some slow motion things, and put them in. But look at the horizon. See how he blanked out the horizon so he doesn't have to worry about matting anything in? He's not doing any rotoscoping. He's not, you know, doing all this hard work that makes it so painful, because the old-fashioned way works fine. You know, in modern day, in visual effects, we wouldn't really do this. We wouldn't care. The director would say, well, I just want this, this, and this, and the answer is always fine. Whatever you want, you got it. because there's always a way to do it, because the tools are so powerful that we use in the professional world. But since you guys don't use those tools, you don't have those chops, just do it the old-fashioned way. It still works. It's still fine. Nobody's the wiser. Okay? Let's see if that'll play better again the second time. So play a little smoother. Still a little jerky. Bad codec. Okay, so look at how that one looks. It's kind of overcasty, very nice. And then we'll look at this one. Oops, here we go. And this filmmaker, instead of going for dramatic clouds, he went for blue sky with very subtle clouds, and he brightened everything up and made it look like a nice, happy day shot, okay? So that's one way to go, right? But it's definitely better than blank gray sky, which is what was there originally, right? And then the next one, I'm just showing you this so you can see how different things can be. This person decided to go with the stormy sky, but they put a nice little dramatic, cloud thing there. Look, he did the same thing with the horizon, though, but he went for the gray overcast thing, but he put a dramatic gray overcast sky in. So this has a total different look and feel from the guy who went for the sunny look, right? And once you decide this, then when you come in for your close-ups, when you're doing all your color timing and grading of the scene in post-production, then you're going to be matching your master shot. You're going to make sure the close-ups are either bright and sunny or they're going to be dark and gloomy. So there's a lot of decisions that are going to impact the rest of your show once you get your big masters done. If you watch Barry Lyndon, like that first slide I showed you of the duel, where there's that dramatic stormy sky, when he cuts in for the close-up, the sky behind the guy is just white, because that's what's there. But the audience never remembers. They just remember the super drama, and now they're looking at the guy's face, but they forget that there's supposed to be a cloud back there. It's not there anymore. Okay? And I've got one more just for drama purposes. And this young filmmaker decided to go with the big sunset shot. It's kind of hard to tell in the projector, but he's got all these like oranges and reds. He also flipped the sky, put it upside down and blurred it and superimposed it over the water, so you've got the reflection, ties it all together. So now once you've done this, the rest of your scene's got to be all timed to look all sunsetty. So you're making a lot of real creative decisions once you put these skies in. I'll tell you a funny anecdote. Once I worked on a Batman movie, and I had this big scene of Gotham City. The instruction from the studio was it has to look comic booky, but also photoreal. So thanks. Black but white. So what I decided to do was to put like really crazy skies in, and that would be like the stylized comic book feel, and then everything else is like really real. So I hand painted this incredible sky with all these colors, blues and greens and purples, and you wouldn't even know it. And I put it in the Gotham City thing, and the director comes and he looks at it and he goes, "There's more drama in that sky than in my entire movie." It's like that. I had to take it out. Was not the call. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so that's it for sky replacements, but what this leads to, this is a transition into the next thing you should do, which is set extensions, okay? And set extensions are where you build a small piece of the set and the rest of it you just comp together with photographs, which again you can do really easily in After Effects if you just take the time to think about it. You just have to plan it in advance and know, what angle you're going to shoot, and you can put stuff together. Remember, the takeaway of this whole night that I want you guys to remember is that visual effects were originally invented to give low-budget filmmakers the production value that the big-budget guys had. Okay? In other words, David Lean can crash a real train and destroy a real bridge in the middle of a jungle, right? But the low-budget guys can't do that, so they crash a miniature train and a little toy train, right? Or today you'd have a little CG train, all right? But it's all designed to give you guys the production values that you can't afford and still get something, okay? So you kind of have to do it, right? So set extensions going back to the 1930s. This is very interesting. here the producers have built their set, and it's just a couple of walls. They dressed it really nicely, but they can't possibly afford to be in a real room with a real ceiling with real chandeliers and all that. This is just a cheap little set on a soundstage. Also, there's a grid up there with lights, lighting all the set, and you know, it's like we can't light it and get this big master shot and get it the way we want unless we put the grid up there. So what they did in camera back then was, you guys know what cameras have matte boxes? Everybody knows that, right? You know why they're called matte boxes? Because you used to put your mats in there. So what you do is you take a piece of black paper and you'd cut it in that shape, and you'd put the top half of that piece of black paper in the matte box. Now it's so close to the lens that it's out of focus. Then when you get back to the studio, you're going to shoot the picture you got from the mansion that you went to for the ceiling, and you take that piece of black paper out, you put the other piece that you cut out in the bottom to cover the bottom up, and you run the film through the camera again. Since it's close to the camera, it's a soft, close to the lens, it's like a soft edge, right? And so it blends perfectly. It's called a matte box. You all have them, you just maybe never thought that you actually did do mats that way. It's true, okay? You don't do it like that anymore, now you just do it in After Effects, okay? You make a little spline, you soften it, you put your top in. Okay, so this is the scene without the top. And now, there's the set with the matte painting in it. Now in the old days, some guy actually painted that as a painting, so it would match the angles. Today, you would just go to the room in a real mansion and take a photograph and go into Photoshop, and you'd take a frame of your live action, and you would take it into Photoshop in a layer, and you just line them up and tweak it until it all matched. And then when you go into After Effects, you just do a little soft edge, bang, 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 bang. And now you've got the enormous production value that you would have had if you were MGM back in the day, which these guys obviously didn't have that kind of money. And nobody's the wiser. They think you're just making this beautiful movie that's gonna, you know, just be just like Downtown. Okay, so that's the idea of set extensions. Okay, I'm going to show you a simple one that I did. Let's see if I can find it here. Okay, this is from a Disney movie called Holes, which had Sigourney Weaver and Shia LaBeouf in it. The only way I could talk my daughter into going to the premiere was saying, "I'll introduce you to Shia LaBeouf." It's like, okay, yeah, you know, yeah, Shia LaBeouf. Anyway, have everybody seen Holes? It was like, you had the little lizards, and I made the lizards. I did the lizards. So it's still on my reel. I love those lizards. Because they're actually going to hire real lizards, like movie lizards, for the shoot, but it was so hot they wouldn't act. They're like, come on, act. And they're like, yes. So we had to do CG lizards. Anyway, the prison camp, this is from the prison camp, was all shot at the Warner Brothers Ranch in Burbank, and this is a plate from it, so there's the Hollywood Hills, you can see in the distance, and it's clearly not in a desert, but it had to be. So all I did was I went into, it wasn't After Effects, but it could easily have been, and just cut these shapes out, and I stuck in the desert. So that's just a still image of a desert, which we shot in Death Valley. And then because we're on the Warner Brothers Ranch in the middle of, you know, green, happy Burbank, now it becomes a desert. Very, very simple to do. So if you watch the movie, lots of stuff is shot against the buildings, you know, and stuff like that. But every once in a while there'll be a big wide establishing shot. You'll see all this stuff in the distance, and it's just very simply put in. Very, very simply put in. Set extensions. The idea is you guys are making your movie, and it's maybe on a super low budget, and the only place you can afford to shoot is your backyard, and you need to see the city out there, you know, on the other side of that fence. It's like, don't worry about it. Figure out where the line is. Lock your camera down so it's not hard to do later. Don't do a big complicated move unless you want to call me later and have me do it for you. You know, just lock it down where you can cut a simple mat, and then shoot another, you know, still image of whatever's supposed to go back there and just put it together. Just plan it in advance to establish. You only do these on the big establishers. Then once you're into the movie, you're down into the close-ups. Okay, that's how the big boys do it. They're on a low budget too, believe it or not. The only difference between their movies and yours is the salaries. Otherwise, it's all the same. Okay? So set extensions, definitely do them. I didn't bring too much more about that. I'm going to tell you. We'll move on. Okay. And then the other thing is extras. Okay? All you guys have made little movies and you've got your drama and everything and you go, God, I wish I had enough money for like 100 extras in the background and we're all doing the right stuff. Because what am I going to do? You know, shoot a documentary style and everybody looks at the camera and no, that's not good. You know, I want to do my zombie movie. I've only got 10 friends and they all eat a lot of craft service. And the blood's expensive and it takes time to get them in a costume. It's just such a drag. I don't have a very scary thing. It's like, well, wouldn't you rather have 100 zombies? Okay? So, do like the big boys do, okay? Which is you divide your scene up into little sections and you film your extras over and over and over again, the same 10 guys, okay? So let me show you how this is done real easily. This is from an old movie called An Old Chicago, where Chicago burns down. They had a couple of 100 people here, but they needed thousands, so they had them all clumped up in the middle, right? That's one shot. And the next one is they clumped them all up in the right. And the next shot, they clumped them all up on the left. And then the final image I brought, they put those three things together and they put some fire on top of it and now they're burning down Chicago with a crowd with a cast of thousands, okay? So, I'm going to show you a shot that I did, which was the exact same thing. And what I've got here is from Last Samurai again, because this was a really nice show. One of my favorite shots I've ever done in my life is this battle scene at the end of the movie. And this is actually the shot of the battle. Whoops, hang on. Let's see if I can make this full screen. And that's the biggest, widest battle shot in the movie. Okay? I just love this shot. Watch it put together. It's actually made of hundreds of elements. It's really complicated, probably more complicated than you want to get involved with. It was one of the things that I talked Ed Zwick into, because when we were making this, they were just going to release Return of the King. And Ed Zwick would come in and he'd go, have you seen Return of the King? Have you seen Return of the King? And it's like, yeah. He goes, how are the battles? How are the battles? It's like, oh man, it's like thousands of people, they're awesome. He's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? You know, he knew he had to compete with this. So we came up with the idea for this shot, okay? And I'm just going to break it down for you real quick. Okay, our screen's really crappy, but if it were good, I'll put this on my website if you want to see this still. I'll put it on a slice on my website. On my website, it's kind of like a blog. It's like WordPress. And on the right, there's all this like recent stuff I've done. So on that little bloggy part, I'll do a post about this meeting, and I'll put this still up there so you can see it. Because what you see, this was actually broken up into 12 different quadrants. And I wish I had a pointer, but here in the foreground, this little section here, you can't quite tell on the screen, but with the still you can see it. This is actually one little group of guys, and there's about 30 or 35 guys there, okay? And then there's another little quadrant here. You can see how they're dark and they change. Another quadrant here that goes to there. And then there's another quadrant there, and then there's about 5 in the back. There, and there. And it's the same 35 guys. And what we did was we took a piece of string on the field and just marked the field off into quadrants. And okay, everybody stand here and fight. Now stand here and fight. Now stand here and fight. Got all the pieces and put together this shot. Now there's a few other elements too in it. There's guys on the horizon charging in on horses. There's guys from the left charging in on horses. All the fire and smoke is fake and comped in. And I urge you to go see Last Samurai and watch for this shot on the big screen. You can't see it on the DVD, okay? But I'll tell you right now, this little group of guys coming in here in the back, there's a bunch of Linux penguins in samurai outfits running along with them as they come in. You can see it on the big screen. It's like, those are penguins. Just for a joke. More of that stuff goes on than you know. Everybody loves Linux in the visual effects industry, so everybody likes putting the penguin in. So I think almost every movie made in the last 30 years has a Linux penguin somewhere in it. You just have to find them. That's where ours are. And you hope that the director never sees it. Okay, so the point is, if you guys are doing your zombie movie or something, and you need to have a crowd of 200 zombies, hire 10 people. And break everything up mentally into quadrants, look through the camera, don't move the camera, shoot, and then in After Effects just make a little soft edge and put it together. Nobody's the wiser. They'll never notice. Okay? It's really easy to do. If you're doing a restaurant scene and you've got your two people talking in the table in the foreground, and you go, God, I wish I had, 30 people in the background eating, just get 5 people and film them here and then put them at this table and put them at that table and put them at that table. Make sure your foreground guys don't cover them up so it makes it hard to have to roto them out or something. And then just change their shirts, put on a different coat, have them turn their faces away from the camera, and now all of a sudden you've got 50 people in a crowded restaurant for the scene. Okay, now it's like Hollywood. Because instead of being really bare bones, it goes, it's kind of cheap. Now it just looks like any movie you'd see downtown because that's how the big boys do it. And you guys should do it the same way. It doesn't cost any extra. I mean, the stuff I'm telling you to do is free. And it's stuff that you can do without me or anybody sophisticated. It's really easy. In fact, I'll tell you a story. One time I was working at this facility, and the boss comes in, he goes, oh my God, the big VPs from Disney are coming by. They're coming by. You got to come to this meeting. We're going to talk about it. And I go, okay. And he goes, for God's sake, whatever you do, don't tell them how easy it is. Okay. I know. But it is. It's easy. Okay. So I'm telling you guys. That's my samurai thing. Now let's see what else we got. Okay, that's most. Oh, one more thing. I'll give you a little tip. So we haven't talked about any technical stuff yet. I'm going to give you one technical tip. This is a diagram of a nodal point pan. Okay, and what a nodal point pan is that everybody knows that inside a lens, there's a front element and there's a back element, right? And the light that comes in through the top of your lens on the front goes diagonally through the lens and comes out the bottom of the back element. And the light that comes in from the bottom of the frame comes in the bottom of the front element, goes diagonally through the lens and comes out the top of the rear element. So that when you see the image from the rear element, it's upside down, right? Everybody knew that, right? Okay, it does. If you didn't know, trust me. So inside a lens, the light crosses to a little tiny point, okay? And that point is called the nodal point. And if you're ever doing a big pan where you're going to be doing a sky replacement or putting some set extension stuff in, you always want to use a nodal point setup where you put your camera on a little rail. Most cameras come on a little rail on your tripod. You can push your camera back. So that the middle of the lens, it's actually about 2/3 of the way back on the lens is where it crosses, depending on the shape of the lens, how wide it is directly over where you're going to pan. Now, of course, they've got a weight on this because back in the day you had a big Mitchell camera which weighed as much as a car, and you had to put a counterweight on. Today, when you're shooting with a little red, you probably don't even need that. You just slide it back, okay? Now, the point is, everybody knows that if you do a dolly shot, that there's a parallax shift of all the elements in the frame. So the stuff in the foreground that you're dollying past is going to move faster than the stuff in the background that's barely going to move at all, right? Everybody knows that? Okay. Well, when you pan the camera and the lens is out in front of the nodal point, the lens is out here, you pan like this, it's like a dolly shot. The nodal point of the lens actually moves like that, okay? And that means when you do a pan, everything on the screen in depth suddenly shifts. You get a parallax shift of everything on the screen. So what's the point? The point is if you're going to do a sky replacement, there's a big building in the foreground. You got to get rid of it. I mean, it's got to stay there, but you can get the sky behind it. In After Effects, you're going to do a little spline, right? It's going to hold that building back. So it's going to cover up the sky, and you put a little spline there. Well, in your pan, you're going to put a tracker in. You're going to attach that spline to the tracker so that as the building passes across, that spline tracks with it, and the matte stays perfect with the sky behind it, right? But the problem is, if you've done a dolly shot or you've done a regular pan with your regular setup, everything shifts. And that makes it really hard because everything in your frame that's going to be covering up part of your set extension of your sky has to be matted and tracked separately and have separate trackers. And pretty soon you've got 25 trackers on here and all these things, and it's taking all day. Oh my God, it's taking days to sort all this out. But if you do a nodal pan, nothing moves in perspective because you're panning around the point. The nodal point. So it's like panning over a still photograph. Nothing will shift in perspective, which means when you do your little track, when you do your little mat, and you put it on the tracker, you need one tracker because everything's going to move the same. Nothing's going to shift. Okay, which means you do your first mat, and you don't have to check it every 10 frames to make sure it's keeping up and to make adjustments and animate it and do all this painful stuff, and things are shifting around and you want to blow your brains out because you just can't get it right, okay? Instead, it's a job that will take 5 minutes. If you don't do that with somebody good on your staff, it'll take 5 hours. With somebody not so good, it'll take 5 days. Okay, so since time is money in movies, time is money, and you want to make this as easy as possible to yourself. This is a little trick that people used to do in the old days to make it really easy and painless to pull a mat and make it work. Okay, people don't do this that much anymore because visual effects are so sophisticated. It's like, well, I just want to make a movie called Gravity, and it just goes, you know, it's one long shot. It's like, yeah, we can do that. Okay? But with the right people, you can do it. But that doesn't have anything to do with Seattle. You guys are all independent, fiercely independent filmmakers. You want to do it yourself. So be wise. Do things the old-fashioned way, and you can do it yourself, and in the end, it's going to look great. It's going to be marvelous. Nobody will bat an eye. It will be as good as it possibly can be, okay? And all of this production value I'm suggesting, if you did sky replacements and set extensions for all your big masters in your movie, people are going to go, wow, look at the production value. Look at what they brought to the screen. Look at these Barry Lyndon quality, you know, shots that they did. And it's like, that's right. Because I'm such a maniac perfectionist, I waited for those clouds to be right. And we'll put that in the papers. And you'll be as cool as Stanley Kubrick. That's what we all want, isn't it? That's all I got.
Well, I want to say thank you so much, Tim, for doing that. When we do these setups, there's a lot of people you don't get to see because we've talked to them, we've vetted the ideas, and they're theoretical, or they never get to the point, they never deliver the secret sauce. They're never giving you something that's practical that you could use in your everyday business. That was thousands of dollars worth of practical. That was so good. Thank you. I mean, my best line was, all the production value you can't afford. That's brilliant. I'm so curious to see what Seattle Film Institute does with the applause in the background when they post this. This is going to be some really great post-production there too. So it'll be online in about a week or so. In the meantime, go to timeveritt.com and check out his stuff. I bet he'll even add more stuff here. There was a certain point that you brought up to me around cracks in sidewalks and roads that you never got even to touch on today. So maybe you can even talk more about that. This isn't a Q&A, so if you want to talk to Tim, I'm sure he'll stick around. If you buy the drink, he'll probably give you even more information. Thank you very much for coming out. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.